All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our September Jupyter community call. Thanks for everyone who came. And yeah, so we'll just go ahead and get started here. I think we have a few things on the agenda. So just a reminder, we do these every month. The last Tuesday of the month, 9 a.m. Pacific. Yeah, anyone can join. Anybody can present whatever they like. Something somewhat related to the Jupyter ecosystem in space is just an opportunity to pitch fun things you've been doing. Think about it like a virtual Jupyter Con. And so we've just been doing these 10-minute flash talks where you just share something that you've been working on through some sort of interactive demo, and then any short reports you might have. So let's go ahead and get into the main agenda. On our short reports and celebration section, looks like Tony, you have something here you want to share?
Yeah, sure. I thought that this was awesome. Just a short little post, and it kind of goes along with what you were just talking about, Zach, being able to run that second notebook server. So it looks like, and I think Nick can even speak to this a little bit more because he definitely influenced it. But this is Matt Rockland talking about how to spin up notebook apps using Dask. Which I thought was a kind of cool idea, kind of managing them from a central Dask cluster, perhaps for interactive computing, might have some potential value and scalability later. So I just wanted to share that. It's a good read.
Awesome. That's sweet, Tony. Thanks for sharing. So that's in the agenda, and we'll post this agenda, of course, online for us to look at and be able to find later. Thanks, Tony. Cool. Does anybody else have anything they want to share? Short reports or celebrations? Give you 10 seconds to hop in.
The JEP for supporting the language server protocol has been out for a while now. Grant fired that up. Fellow by the name of Kraskowski on GitHub has been pushing that forward with a integration of the language server protocol into Jupyter Lab. And we've been reaching out to some other people in the community and doing some work there. It's going pretty well. So I think there's definitely some future there. There's people that have built language servers for law records and language servers for YAML, JSON, CSS, everything. So getting that into the tent is a really, really good idea. And I can add a link to where some of that's going on.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. Cool. Okay, let's go ahead and move into our main agenda items. Tony, you want to lead us off with import MB?
Indeed. Cool. All right. Let me just check and see if we made Binder happy. Well, anyway, there might be a binder for my talk at some point. But let's see. So if we go to the HackMD, I've got two links for you all. One of them is a post to a gist that I'll be giving this presentation from. And then Import MB has a link itself. So let me tell you a little bit more about Import MB. So let's restart this kernel so I can run it for you, and I'm not a liar as we move along. So why Import MB? So first of all, Import MB wasn't designed as a tool so much as it was designed to make better notebooks. So Import MB teaches reproducible habits. If your notebook can be imported as a module, then it likely will restart and run all. So by reusing notebooks, you start to put an extra verification layer on your notebooks. And as a result of using Import MB, instead of making really long, increasingly complex nonlinear notebooks, what we're able to do is we're able to split them up into different places and reuse them at different levels. It also talks about how notebooks can be used as applications. And then what we can start to see is that this concept of restart and run all really starts to seed notebooks as units of testing. So import MB is a Python package. You can get it on pip. Let's see, it's pip install import MB. I hope it works. Please send any issues my way. We've been using this. It's probably one of the core pieces of the Deathbeds organization for a long time. We use it in practice, and we also use it in application for testing and data science work. So let me tell you the story of import MB. So what we're going to do here is we're going to write a little notebook. Basically, we're just going to make a notebook with a code cell. It's got foo in it. And if we try and do import demo, we've called the notebook demo.ipynb, nothing happens. We get a module error. So when I'm writing notebooks, sometimes I want to leave errors in the notebook. This is a way to do it by just sort of inlining PyTest. So now it says, hey, I can't import demo. So what if I go and import it now with import MB? So now we have this context manager that has replaced our system hooks, and we can import notebooks, and they work as Python files. If I go to demo.foo, the value is 10, and that's kind of the simplest proof that we have here for this problem. So now let's say I go up and I change my file and I try to import it again. Nothing happens. Same thing down here. That's importing it again. Nothing happens. So the question somebody might raise now is, are notebooks reloadable? So I'm just gonna, import MB reload is just the standard Python reload operator. I just put it on the module, so it's a little bit more reusable. And if I run this, basically what's happening is I'm definitely raising a module not found error. Otherwise, I would have gotten in some trouble. Just to prove it to you all, that's how that works. So now, what are we going to do? We're going to change our notebook, and then we're going to use import MB reload inside of the context manager. So every time I run this, we still get our printouts here. So the import MB infrastructure does indeed work with reload. So we can use import MB in packages. So JSON schema is a notebook in a package somewhere, and I can use relative imports. And as long as in my init.py I call import MB, it makes it possible to transparently use notebooks as Python modules inside of your code. Sometimes what we'll do is we'll make notebooks that have a load extension feature to them. So maybe we're making IPython extensions. So inside of a function, inside of our context manager, we'll relatively import some things, and then we'll call their load extension functions. So, I mean, import MB really has your notebook working as any other Python module. The only thing that's different is how we develop it, right? When we're working in a Python application, we usually have named the thing, but notebooks, our name is always main to start with. So what we find oftentimes is when we're working with notebooks, we have this if name equals main condition to say, hey, I only want to do this if I'm running in the notebook, or I can only do this if I'm running in a module. And there's a little post in here that kind of goes on to describe some of the reasons about why name equals main is important. So some of you may be asking, what does import MB do? So inside of the syspath hooks, we've got some loader details, and this is the information that Python uses to say, hey, for a Py file, this is the loader that I use. If I call this same expression inside of the context manager, we can see that my loader details have changed, and now import NB notebook loader is there with some extra options to it, and that is responsible for IPyNB files. So some things about notebooks. Oftentimes we don't name notebooks properly. Like for example, this notebook here is titled as if it were a blog post, right? So we can't import that in Python, but with import MB we can. We've put some fuzzy finding attributes on here where 1 underscore is a star, 2 underscores is a star star. So I can go and import MB as, oh great, cool story, Tony. Oh, this is what happens when you live hack on your notebook that you want to import. So let's not worry about that right now. Something busted. Cool. So we'll get back to where we were. Darn it. That's distracting. Let's see if it works now. Does not work at the moment. Maybe because this is, I don't know why it's not working. It generally does. Let's ignore this part for the meantime. Maybe it works on Binder. So if that's not working, this might not work. But there is an import MB extension, which when we go to an import statement, replaces the completer so that we can now go and find fuzzy names of things that we want to import. So, you know, if you don't exactly know the name, or maybe you know the date, this kind of allows you a way to sort of fuzzy inspect things that you can import, and clearly it failed. That's so frustrating.
It's your contest raises.
Oh, it is? Yeah. Oh, which one?
That's what I was complaining about.
Oh, okay. I'll fix that in just a second. So the other thing that we can do is we can use the import notebook context manager to create loaders for other files. In this example, we're loading some sort of hybrid languages here. And let me see if Nick, did not raise. So which one's not raising? Import demo. Okay, so if we go to, that's the reload demo. PyTest raises import demo. If Nate, so this is a great example of where one thing is true in the application and another thing is false in the module. So now hopefully Nick has debugged my problem in real time for me, which is great. Patience is key here. Oh no, I deleted all those cells. Now they're back. Okay, so now if we go here and put an underscore, fuzzy imports. Woo! All right, so all our print statements and stuff show up. You know, if we were to reload that, we get everything again. Every Python module has a loader to it, and this obscure name here is pointing back to an IPyMB file, and we can see it hanging off of the sys modules. Another thing, yeah, so now that we have our fuzzy importing, we don't have to use our context manager when there is a, when the extension's loaded. So we can just import notebooks as if they were modules. And then another cool trick of import MB is the ability to, we go and discover Python literals, so strings and integers and tuples, and then we elevate those to command line arguments, so you can go and rerun notebooks as if they were functions that looked at stuff. So with that, I'll stop there, and I'm happy to take any questions if anybody has anything.
What about line numbers?
Oh, you want me to make an error? Do you? Okay, great. So let me go here and we'll make this notebook and we'll call it, oh, yep. All right. Nick's in the room, so I'm reacting to him as if this were conversational, but it is indeed not. Which one are we on here? We're on this one. Okay. All right. So now let's make a bad notebook that goes, this does something funky, and then we assert false. We clearly know that that is not true. And now if we go back over to our demo and we import bad, what winds up happening is we actually get the line numbers directly back to the line in the JSON file, and it actually gives us the expected Python sort of tracebacks. So one of the problems that I had early on importing notebooks was fixing errors, and it's very important to be able to retain the line numbers as we import these things. And I really appreciate this digression, because I can also share with you all the fact that, bad doesn't import, does it? What a bummer. Okay, so now we go over here. Actually, maybe we duck into dual screen mode, because this is where import MB really starts to shine. And now we go and do true. And then if we go up, where did I import bad, bad now works. And our doc string actually becomes the first markdown cell. So yeah, that's a little bit about debugging import MB notebooks.
I was going to follow up with the question on what happens to markdown cells throughout the notebook. Can you, I mean, I don't know what you would do with them.
So they turn into strings, because so import, the MB convert opinion turns them into comments. By turning them into strings, if the first cell is a markdown cell, then the first thing in the Python module is a string. So that means that automatically the markdown becomes a doc string. Whereas if it were a comment, the Python compiler would not recognize it.
The same thing also works for class definitions. So if you make a markdown cell above a class, it will show up as the doc string.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, thanks.
That's awesome. Does anybody have questions for Tony? Thanks, Tony. That was sweet.
Thank you for letting me share.
Yeah, that was super cool.
Thanks, Arian.
I had a question about the completer integration. How does that work?
See, like you guys, I have not followed the trail of JavaScript. I hate JavaScript. I miss CoffeeScript. So all of the things I do are by hacking the IPython shell. So basically, I'm writing something into the IPython completer that's like looking at what files are available with a specific extension.
Oh, I see. So it's the stock completer. You're just adding to the output.
Yep, exactly that.
Cool.
And it's also important to note that import MB does not have any dependencies, or does it have tools still?
It works with pure Python. So if you don't need IPython for this to work, it has a fallback so that you can use it without any dependencies.
And contributions welcome. If you find things that don't work, like the CLI right now, it's a really cool demo when it works, but it's not up today. We're always looking at more interesting ways to use things. And a longer con would be, can I import a notebook because of all the extra metadata that's in another kernel and get another kernel type? And can I get back a pointer to an R kernel, a pointer to another kernel, and then what do the types look like between it? So that's where typelets starts to get really interesting. What does it look like for these things to be strongly typed between two languages? Cool. Is it me? Am I on? Okay, I'm getting a nod from Zach. It's a pensive nod.
Yeah. No, you're on. I know. I'm thinking.
All right. Yeah. So I'm taking that screen. And
Okay.
Oh my God. I don't know what to do. I have so many options. Let's see if this works. I've got a QA in the room that'll tell me if it's not. Is it still working?
Looks great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is Robot. I'm on Linux. I ran it inside of Windows because that's the thing that usually breaks. And what I just did was run a 700 megabyte installer. And I'm going to fire it up here while I keep talking. So yeah, let's do the thing. Double click. Everybody's favorite black screen scares people. Don't you break today. Don't you break today. Okay. It's probably not going to break today. Yeah. Okay. So what Robot Lab is a single click installer for Windows, Linux, and Mac that gives you Jupyter Notebook, Jupyter Lab, Node.js, Python, Selenium, Firefox, Gecko driver, just like a ton of stuff so that you can try out acceptance test driven development. Acceptance test driven development is writing your tests of how the overall system should function in a way that people can easily understand. So English, even though it's a very international community that develops Robot Framework. And so what we see here is I've got this new kernel called Robot Framework. Lab guys, thanks for letting me see all of Robot Framework instead of Robot Fr. It's looking great. And so what I got in here is this new folder. It defaults to the home directory because a lot of people, if they're just trying to try this stuff for the first time, they don't think a lot about their paths, but they'll know what that looks like. So I'm gonna make a new folder and working, and I'm gonna start a new thing. here. I don't want PowerShell because breaks the world. .exe, even that, oh, never tab complete on Windows. Okay, and what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to cd into working, and among the things that we did that we haven't exposed in the UI is we can take a look at what, oh man, this is not going to work. All right, I'm just going to type it, Robot Lab Tutorial. And that just unpacked a bunch of notebooks from inside of here. And so we're gonna crack this guy up here. Some more screen real estate. Yeah, there we go. So the kind of weird thing that this does, one of the first things it does is actually automate itself. So we're gonna go in here. It's gonna load up some stuff. Everything's a little slow on Windows the first time. I don't know what my token is, so let's find out what my token is. View page source. Oh, that's, see, now I'm getting stuck on different things. I'll have to find my token here from the command line. Anybody that's done crazy demos like this knows how gross this is. All right. Oh, come on. You are coming with me. Yep, there we go. Okay, so here's my token, and just loaded up this thing called Selenium library. This is the robot syntax. This is all syntax highlighting that we built for, especially for this purpose. And you know, we've got some fun things we can do. So we're going to load this in, and robot language lets you define things in this sort of hybrid Python-y, Englishy kind of thing. The idea is to get to human readable things that you can reuse later, but you're kind of free to do whatever you want along the way. These are some IPy widgets, which we kind of get for free because of being built on top of IPy kernel. I'm not going to press those right now, but they do exciting things. And so we're going to try this first task here. So I'm going to open up Jupyter Lab on this machine. And Windows is going to complain because of my firewall. And opening a browser is pretty slow. Anybody that's done you know, real browser testing before has encountered that before. And we got an error that form password not be scrolled into view. I think that's a regression with my understanding of it. Here's the browser it opened. And so we'll just go ahead and you know, paste that kernel in there. All right, let's try that test again. Not a great test, but here we are. So we're going to hit that guy again, and went into lab, figured out it didn't need it, and is now punching me right into Jupyter Lab. So the launcher didn't show up because I'm launching from the same workspace as my existing one. So if I clear out my workspace here so that I'm not trying to do that, let's try one more time. And of course, when you made this into an actual test, you would you know, do a little bit more work to make it happen. But here we go. So that just passed successfully. What does that mean? So robot framework, this is the thing that I always am able to win people's hearts and minds with. This is the test report that you get out of it. And so you get this beautiful tree of everything that you tried to do. It's like a, you know, like a profile run. And you can see all your intermediate values inside of here. So it did a bunch of fun things like that. You do not want to know how we get that into the browser. For lab people, it's probably a security hole. Anyhow, moving on. So we just opened one of those. Let's take a look thing over here. And this is, we're going to try and use that browser that's open over there. You saw some stuff flicker maybe. But we just made an annotated screenshot of where different things are on the browser. So that's kind of hilarious. We're going to keep going. The screenshots also show up inside the log, which is fun. We're going to get into here and, you know, we're going to try and do this thing. I'm going to open up the lab examples. Oh, it didn't work. Rect is undefined. I don't even know what that means. So I think it just didn't, I think I need to have the file manager open. DOM changed a little bit. Lab folks know this. We're using the SVGs. There we go. Now we're running inside of there. It opened the wrong one because the selector is kind of janky there. But I'll get to that in a little bit here. And, you know, so we're collecting up broken tests and winning tests and stuff like that. This one's totally busted because this is where, folder icon, like that doesn't even work anymore. So it'd have to be something like, I don't know, data icon equals the file manager or something like that. I don't remember. I'd have to go look at it. Wait a second. What if I do this? What if I just went and clicked on here? It's a tab bar tab mod.
What?
Styled components. I hate you. So yeah, it's something like this. That wouldn't be stable between builds because I hate styled components. But there we are. So anyhow, things would go along there. We can do crazy stuff and all kinds of things like that. All right, that's interesting. All this stuff works locally. It's kind of fun. I'm gonna kill this guy off. When I kill this off, now it does something to the kernel and it does some other things. So I'm gonna close this off too. And I don't know. We got a bunch of other cool features in here. We can go grab things from, that's just background. Running code, you can actually run, this is for people that don't even know Jupyter, so we didn't worry too much about that. Here we go. So this one, because we got the XKCD thing, this is the Python one. This is not the robot one, running robot. You know what? I'm actually not going to do any of these other ones except for maybe this one. This is always kind of a Hail Mary. So this is a Windows only setting. You use a thing called White, which is a semi-defunct .NET running application. But we're going to try it. So we're going to try and launch Notepad. Looks like it launched. It kind of takes a sec, but I think it's working. So let's see if this works. Yeah, .NET always does that to me. So yeah, there's probably something busted in here. That happens. We're trying to make this one work robustly. But the idea is that you can command just about anything that's running on the CLI or the CLR, the C# CLR. Come on. Oh, that would have worked. Come on, buddy. I'd really like this to work. It's such a good one. Attached to notebook. Yes, put stuff in there. Oh wait, it doesn't actually run anything. Yeah, I think it's hanging. Okay, so anyhow, that's a better demo when it actually works. And so it's got all the other stuff under the hood. You can make Python notebooks, all that kind of stuff. We got some other freaky examples. So if I drop back into here and instead of doing tutorials, I do examples. Yep, and then go back up into working examples. So the one of the big long poles in this is and we're going to go with headless Firefox. Nah, we'll go with Firefox. Everybody likes to watch it. So this is this uses OpenCV, and I didn't write this. I'll tell you that much. This uses OpenCV to, oh, come on. I think what's happening is the Gecko driver, oh, there it goes. I think the Gecko driver log is staying open because they changed that behavior recently. Oh, man, I'm really bad at using Windows. Oh, I just killed it. Oh, man. Well, it did run, and it made this, it found this image of the Google search button. And my buddy Datakur from Finland graciously changed this so it didn't break because it used to point at Finland and it said, Google Haku or something like that, and it didn't work. This is an example of using the using Python right in line. This Tony's stuff would be at home with this because this is actually hacking things into a namespace called Vision Library. Robot can now use that namespace. It would have exploded if we hadn't used that before. And now we're going to try and command. This is going to break too.
Well, why don't you take some questions?
Yeah, it's any open questions.
Yeah.
I think it worked. Yeah, it worked. It just searched for some stuff and gave me back this picture of it. So that's pretty freaky. Yeah, any questions on that? It's a lot, I know.
Have you used this to test Jupyter Lab extensions?
Well, it's funny you asked that. So it actually, can you turn your audio off? It actually tests itself with itself. So if I could find, oh right, that's in my other computer. Come on, buddy. So we actually, robot kernel is the thing that we've just been looking at, the kernel that does all that, come on, go away, go, go away. Robot kernel is the thing that we were just looking at, and it does use robot to test itself. And I've also made a Jupyter library that supports testing Jupyter Lab, Classic, Notebook Classic, and Interact. It's broken right now because of the SVG DOM changes. But yeah, you can absolutely test extensions with this. And we've got that live on a couple of the Deathbeds projects. It's beautiful because you can run multiple reports out at the end. So if we were to dig into robots from Jupyter, and actually it's a pain in the ass to go get it. Basically, it runs it on multiple operating systems, multiple browsers, and then you can bring all those test reports back together and see all of them in one place. You can do tags and all kinds of fun stuff like that, but I just don't have that available right now. So the clutch thing on this is the ability to build offline deliverable, SneakerNet capable packages. And so it's, this whole pipeline is not custom to Robot Lab. You could do this for anything that you can package inside of Conda, so pretty much anything. So if we wanted to have a Jupyter Lab standard distribution that had all the Jovian widgets in it and Jupyter Lab and all that nonsense, we could do that. We could host that. We would be taking on things that normally we defer to people like Anaconda to do support of how you actually get your Python and your node. But by the same token, anybody that's supported a workshop knows you go in there and all of a sudden you're overloading the entire network with gigabytes and gigabytes of requests if you're doing anything non-trivial. So it's got a lot of advantages in that regard. Yep. That's all I got. And if there's more time later, I had some requests for some other nonsense, but that's what I got right now.
That was awesome, Nick. Holy cow. Thank you for sharing. Let's move on to our next one because we got one more presentation in here, but we'll come back for questions because that was awesome. Yeah, really, really cool. Denton, you're up next if you're ready to go.
I think so. We'll see how well this works. So this is a notebook to rewrite a set of climate models that were originally developed in Microsoft Excel, as one does, for how to draw carbon back out of the environment. Excel was fine when they had one Excel file, and it was still fine when there were 7 Excel files, and then there were 25, and then there were 43, and now there's over 100, and people avoid doing it would require them to go open the other 99 files. So we re-implemented the model in Python. There is a user interface originally constructed in Jupyter Lab. The version that I'm showing here is running in Voila. And so it's, we made the notebook run, we made it run in Notebook first and then got it working in Voila. Each of these is what used to be an Excel file. It's one of the solutions. By clicking it, I pre-selected one of them. It runs the model and generates the rest of these tabs. The interface here showing the overall summary of the results is Vega generated from Python and then passed to the front end. That was one of the things that was slightly more difficult to do when we got it working in Notebook. We use Altair for graphs. the model has a graphic of how the data flows through the model. This is an SVG. We generate it dynamically based on what solution you've loaded. So it starts with an SVG file that has every module that this model can possibly use, and then it prunes out the ones that are not used in this particular solution by just removing them from the XML of the SVG file. This is another area that was somewhat more difficult when we got it working in Notebook, because the IDs, we used this same SVG in multiple places, and the IDs would conflict and they would fight. And so we had it rewrite the SVG to make the IDs unique on each of these tabs. There it is again, and this time it's highlighting, you are here. This is what we are looking at. We use IPy volume for some stuff, and it looks like my map is broken. Oh well. Well, let me show let me ask a question. When we first started working on this, we started getting feedback from the audience of users. The audience is mostly going to be researchers. That's PhD students, grad students, and postdocs in various fields, geology, oceanography, and so on. And somewhere less than half were familiar with Notebook, and those that were familiar with Notebook and comfortable using it had a better than average chance of knowing about Git and knowing about Python. But then that means that over half were not really comfortable using Notebook. So when we were in Jupyter Lab and you had to click the run button, over half of the potential users didn't like that very much. So that prompted the get it working in Voila so that it will just render. And we're trying to make it possible to work with the model without having to see the code, without having run boxes, without any of that. Part of that is if they make changes in the user interface, it will write those changes out to the files that they go in, CSV files or JSON. Whoops, that was the wrong one. And then we want to allow Git upload. It initially started on a implementation as a Jupyter Lab extension, but that doesn't help us with the Voila interface here. And so I'm considering doing it in the backend, have buttons here that will tell it to create a Git commit and then upload it and have the Python code do those operations. Is that crazy? Is there an obviously better way to do it?
That makes sense to me.
Are there alternatives?
So
I think having gotten so far down the path of we want to use Voila, that tends to direct us to a certain way. Yes, go ahead.
So you want there to be a control where the user clicks it and a git commit operation happens on the server?
Happens, yes. Ideally, we have this running in Jupyter Hub, and the Git operation would happen in the Python code running in their server backend on the Jupyter Hub.
Okay. And how can you rephrase your question?
Are there alternatives to have the Python backend fork Git?
Is
so
there a Python API for Git? Could you use a widget and have it call some Python code? It would be the same thing.
I mean, so possibly yes, and we can look at that. But like when we were going down the path of a Jupyter Lab extension, that was going to look very different. If we've made this set of decisions, if we want it to be Voila, we want it to render, are there alternatives that can work in Voila, or do we really need to handle this in the back end and the front end just displays buttons?
I think the security regime will be better if you're not trying to do it from the front end. So,
Okay.
what I would imagine doing is, maybe you don't even use Git directly. You might be hitting a local GitLab or even something simpler like Git or Gitolite or something like that, to where you're doing a post. So you could, if someone writes to it, you could have them make a pull request, or you could have them make a branch or something like that, and then you might not even be worrying so much about the Git stuff. It might just be
Well, so Voila is meant to not write to the disk. Like, they go to some trouble to keep you from using a Voila application as an attack vector. But if you built a server component, a Jupyter server component that you ship with a lab extension, and there's basically like a Jupyter lab extension on the front end with a toolbar that invokes these new REST endpoints that you added to the Tornado application serving lab, then that can do the talking to the server and writing to disk and all that, but the Voila portion of the served application never actually writes to disk.
Okay.
Like, if you think of Voila as basically read-only, except it has server access to get calculations done, but it's not, it's meant to be safe to deploy to the public. And you can think of the lab extension as the edit mode, which has write to disk and all that other stuff.
How do I get lab extensions to be active in Voila?
So Vidar has some ongoing work. I've done some work. And the challenge is that, we just need to, the current NB convert regime is putting out Bootstrap CSS and Bootstrap DOM. And we just need we need something that puts out lab and a lab application.
Okay.
So there's certainly some ongoing work to make that happen, but I think I think that's a desirable end goal to get to, so that you can get reusable things that you write for your heavy duty authoring environment, but that you also can use in these kinds of environments. But
Okay.
yeah, you would not rely on anything on the NB server except for the widget bus, basically, right?
Okay.
Like, you wouldn't have the contents manager and any of that other stuff.
Okay. So is it fair to say, even if we did go down the path of having the Python code in the back end construct Git commits and push them, that eventually that's likely to break as Voila tightens its security model?
No, you can write any kind of dangerous thing you want in Voila. You just
Okay.
all it gates is arbitrary code execution with kernel.execute.
I see.
If you write an evil widget, then you can have an evil Voila application. It will
Okay.
not protect you from. So I see no reason not to do it that way. I just wouldn't do it with local Git, right? Like, if you can get it out of the stateless, it's running inside a hub.
Right.
Just have asynchronous posts to a local Git thing, and then you could moderate them or something like that. But for the kind of thing that you're doing,
Right.
Git is perfect. You should not.
Yes.
You want multiple, what if scenarios that you want to be stable, but you don't want to break the underlying model. That's awesome. That would be a high value thing, I think, for a widget concept.
Okay. Okay. I have other stuff that I could show, or we could wrap it up here.
We have some time if you want to, if you'd like to show it, go for it.
Okay. The moving a collection of Excel files to Python had some kind of unexpected interactions with the folks that were familiar with the Excel files. In particular, there are no tests for Excel because of course there are no tests for Excel, and even the metadata, the knowledge of what do the different models do, depends on human memory, and so having the implementation in Python means we can iterate over all of the solutions and count how many use different features of the model or do different things, and that doesn't always match what the humans involved thought that the models were doing. So that has been very helpful. It also means that, as I mentioned, there were no tests for Excel. Well, there are tests now, and we can show the people involved to have confidence they can make a change and not find out what broke 6 months later. Yeah, I think that's everything that I had queued up to show.
That's awesome. Thank you, Denton, for sharing that with us. Anybody have questions for him?
So in building this Voila app, how much custom work did that take to go from a Jupyter Lab notebook to that kind of dashboard that you showed?
The Jupyter Lab notebook looked almost exactly like that. The things that ended up getting redone were to make it a tabs all in one frame, so that if it went and rendered it on its own, it would just fill in, not output lower on the page that people didn't always notice, and then fix things that just work differently in Notebook. I mentioned the two that were the most difficult. SVG was, and its needing unique IDs for the nodes was by far the most difficult to resolve.
And is it open source?
It is. I hadn't intended to put up the URL to it, but if one searches, one could find it. It's not ready for public use, and the project that it's a part of is relatively well known. And so I didn't want to draw people to something that doesn't actually work yet for what they would want it to use it for.
Cool. Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate you showing that work. It's very cool.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for coming. We'll go ahead and stop the video here as we're closing out on time. Unless anybody has something short they want to share. You have 5 seconds to jump in. Oh, Nick?
Sure. Wayne requested something funny. So
Perfect.
Here's something funny. Share. Desktop. Share. Keep sharing. So there's been some requests for more robust forms inside of Jupyter Lab without as much work. So what I've done here, and it's on a branch, but there's no PR yet, is I've replaced the form that you used to get. Oh, nope, gotta do it this way, gotta open it. There's 2 ways to rename things. Replace the form that you used to get that had the logic of how to validate the file name on a rename notebook and the label, and it had stuff kind of all over the place. It now puts all of that into one lazy loaded that apparently might not build. Sweet, good demo. Works locally. If it doesn't work on Binder, it doesn't work. But repurposing the spinner, it's trying to load this this slowly in the background. Let's see if I can. Might just be a time thing. Still working on getting the promises right. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, the promises weren't right. This is a JSON schema form. So if I go in here and change it to be nothing, it says it's a required property. I can put something in there that has a slash in it. Doesn't match that pattern. Can't do that either. And you can make ridiculously arbitrary complex forms out of this. It supports, adding multiple items and stuff like that. So I wanted this as a quick shot at it. The more full one is one that we've talked about before, which is in addition to having where is it? Where's the view? Oh, did we get rid of the table view? Let's get rid of the table view. So used to have a table view in here, and what we would also like is a form view. So if I went into something semi-complicated, instead of reading through JSON comments, be able to create a schema that allowed you to modify these just with one form without having to write a bunch of Phosphor code or a bunch of React code or anything like that. Yeah, so that's a fun little thing.
That's awesome. Thanks, Nick.
Is that the kind of
All
funny
right.
you wanted, Wayne? Or did you want other funny?
No, I was looking for drag and drop file uploading, actually.
That's
I wanted
already
to talk to you
in iPad
about that.
That's already in iPad widgets. It landed.
It actually drag and drop works?
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't found the right example then, because the one that I found that's working in Voila, when I drag onto the button, nothing happens. But maybe it's not set up right for that one. Okay.
I could imagine that being the case. Yeah, because the DOM is different in there. So there might be freaky deaky tricks that they're trying to do.
Oh, so it might work in Jupyter Lab, but not in Voila.
Pretty sure it works in that notebook, yeah.
Okay, I'll test some more stuff. Thanks.
Cool. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, but everyone feel free to hang out on this call as long as you like, and you can chat across the channel for fun. It's good to see everybody. Thanks for coming again. We'll do this next month. I'll put out the video hopefully in the next couple of days. And yeah, we'll see you all next month. Thanks for coming.
See ya.